Hi everyone. Okay, it's time to move on to section 2, finally. Arguments against specific paranormal claims. Now, things are going to change a little bit. Less time will be spent just counting out fallacies, although I will continue to do that. But more time will actually be spent on addressing the paranormal claims.
Section 2. Arguments against specific paranormal claims. Argument 16. Psychics and mediums use cold reading tricks and general guesses, not psychic powers. Skeptics claim that psychics and mediums use cold reading to pick up clues about clients and amaze them. First, let me explain what cold reading is, and then I'll explain why it does not account for all psychic readings.
The implication being that skeptics say so? Wrong. No one is saying that all psychic readings are cold readings.
Cold reading is an umbrella term for a series of techniques that include but are not limited to fishing for clues by asking questions, listening to everything a client says to get clues, making general or vague statements that most people interpret as hits, etc.
Right, and psychics would never need to ask questions or receive any kind of feedback from their subjects if they were indeed just relying on what some dead person or spirit is telling them. The only answer you should give when an alleged psychic asks, "Does the name Ed mean anything to you?" is, "Aren't you a psychic?"
In conjunction with cold reading,
So you knew your earlier straw man was just that.
another technique known as hot reading can also be used. Hot reading is the technique of investigating a person's background and records prior to a psychic reading to obtain specific information about them. Although it's true that there are many frauds out there who use cold reading the way mentalists and magicians do, it doesn't mean that every psychic is a fraud.
No, but the fact that no one can demonstrate that they have psychic abilities under controlled conditions strongly suggests so.
Magic tricks and genuine psychic abilities are two separate fields rather than the same as skeptics like Randy would have you believe.
No one says they're the same.
One huge difference is that magic tricks are tricks. Real psychic abilities are not. Another huge difference is that real magic tricks are seen all the time. You can go to a toy store and get everything you need to do some very simple ones even. And you can do them under controlled conditions to confirm that they are indeed real magic tricks. Real psychic abilities, on the other hand, have never been seen, at least not under conditions where trickery or dumb luck could be eliminated.
The problem with the cold reading/hot reading explanation is that for many accounts of psychic readings, including some of my own, the techniques do not account for the specific information attained. For example, some psychic can tell you very specific things about you without asking any questions, which rules out the fishing for clues technique.
But how does that rule out hot reading or just dumb luck? Ruling out one explanation doesn't mean you can rule out other explanations as well.
If neither they nor any of their accomplices talked to you beforehand, then that would also rule out the same technique.
Who says they must have gotten the information from you? Someone else could have told them. It could also have been a lucky guess. Considering how much they get wrong, they're bound to get something right by chance every now and then.
Unfortunately for skeptics, there are many cases of psychic readings where all of the above were ruled out.
Many? We must be using different definitions of that word because I count 0 and that includes the examples you're about to bring up.
Let me give you some examples of psychic readings that I know of where cold reading was either impossible or too unlikely to be a valid explanation. One of my own examples is from a psychic reading I got from my acting teacher's mom about a year and a half ago. All she asked me for was my birth date, then she looked at my palm for a while. She did not ask any leading questions or fish for clues. To my astonishment, she said that she sensed that I had a tragic period in my life when I was 9 years old.
You also had breakfast this morning. Do I qualify as a psychic now?
Generalized guessing was also too unlikely because if Pearl had asked the age of 5 like she did for the girl before me, it would have been wrong.
No, everyone has tragic periods during practically every year if tragic is left open to interpretation.
The day after this occurred, I wrote an account of it on a message board post asking the skeptics to explain this. They were stumped.
Then they were unusually stupid skeptics, or you're lying. There was absolutely nothing impressive about this.
What's the odds that Pearl gained such hits from guessing for both me and the girl before me?
Very high.
These next two accounts were recently related to me from my dad. My mom decided on the spur of the moment to get a reading. Without fishing for clues, one of the first things that the psychic told her was that when she was a child, her mom tried to give her away for adoption to another family, but she later ran back home, which was true.
Okay, I don't believe you. This is something a psychic wouldn't guess, and since a hot reading seems ridiculously unlikely, the best explanation, assuming that you're being truthful, is that the story was not relayed to you correctly. People tend to remember hits and forget misses. This includes your mom. I'm not saying that she lied, I'm saying that it's more likely that she remembers incorrectly than that this alleged psychic was the real deal. I'd be open to being proven wrong, and I'll even tell you what would do so. Full, unedited recordings of multiple readings so that I can check for hits and misses myself. But psychics will never agree to that.
Gee, I wonder why.
Here's the second story that happened more recently. A few years ago, my dad and a co-worker, Eileen, went to a psychic fair. Immediately, the psychic told Eileen, "You are in the process of moving," which was true.
And how many guesses did he get wrong? Not gonna tell me? Well, then, see above.
This case I heard on my email discussion list is a very extraordinary one.
Right, I'm not even gonna bother making fun of that.
Besides using professional human psychics, one can use divination to obtain information from beyond the five senses, as in this case. I was indirectly at a Ouija board.
Ouija boards, which are toys, work because of the ideomotor effect. Several people unconsciously contribute to moving the planchette. That's why they only work when multiple people touch it. There's nothing mystical or magical about it, and no useful information unknown to any of the operators can ever be obtained except by chance.
In 2000, famous mediums were tested under controlled conditions by Dr. Gary Schwartz.
Those were not controlled conditions. In the first experiment, subjects were asked yes or no questions one at a time, so there's no way to eliminate cold reading. In the second experiment, subjects weren't allowed to give any feedback to the reader, but it was the subjects who evaluated the accuracy of their own readings, and only their own readings. There was no blinding protocol involved here, so there's an obvious problem with confirmation bias. This was not a controlled experiment by any means. Similar problems can be found with all studies of psychic abilities. If they're successful, there's a problem with the controls.
But you know what, Wu? I'm not going to let you get away with just saying that nothing will satisfy me. So I'll tell you exactly what would.
In a world where psychics were for real, psychics would consistently give accurate, specific readings that contain useful information not subject to interpretation. For example, the combination to a dead person's safe. Psychics, and those who believe in them, would be begging for tighter controls and experiments since they would actually want to show that their claims are true. They would welcome challenges and pass them with ease. Psychics would not limit themselves to silly crap that a stage magician can duplicate using trickery. Parapsychologists would be real scientists, proposing hypotheses based on their theories that make falsifiable predictions, testing these predictions and updating their theories accordingly. Psychics would solve crimes, find missing people, and even channel murder victims to testify against their killers. This would be no different from how a court can appoint an interpreter when a witness doesn't speak the local language. Psychics would consistently win lotteries and drive casinos out of business. Psychics would be used by intelligence agencies instead of spies and spy satellites.
Show me that this is the world we live in, Wu. Then I'll take you seriously. See you next time.